All right, let's dive into one of the most chaotic, most fascinating, and honestly most overlooked periods in Indian history. We're talking about a 500-year-long epic struggle where entire dynasties rise and fall, and the very idea of an empire is constantly up for grabs. So this is the big question that hangs over the entire subcontinent after the 7th century. The great empire of Harsha, which had been this unifying force across the north, well, it crumbled. And that left this enormous power vacuum. And you know what happens with a power vacuum, right? Everyone rushes in to fill it. With no one in charge, the whole subcontinent kind of shatters into all these competing kingdoms. But here's the thing. They weren't just fighting for random bits of land. Nope, they were all fighting for one single, ultimate prize. A prize that symbolized total, absolute authority. And that prize was the city of Kannauj. You have to understand, Kannauj wasn't just a city. It was the symbol of power. Why? Because it controlled the insanely fertile Gangetic Plains, the absolute economic heartland of India. Bottom line, if you held Kannauj, you held the keys to the empire. So you can pretty much understand the next 5 centuries as this brutal, nonstop contest to answer that one question. It's like a relay race of ambition, where the baton of power is passed from one dynasty to the next, or, more often, just violently snatched away. Okay, so let's get into the first big chapter of this story. It's famously known as the Tripartite Struggle, and it's exactly what it sounds like. A massive, century-long, 3-way war for supremacy. You've got 3 heavyweight contenders entering the ring. From the east, you have the Palas. From the west, the Gurjara Pratiharas. And storming up from the Deccan Plateau in the south, you have the Rashtrakutas. 3 incredibly powerful dynasties, all laser-focused on that one single prize, Kannauj. For decades, this thing was a total mess. The city was like a revolving door of conquerors. Armies were constantly marching back and forth across northern India. The Rashtrakutas would win a huge battle, then have to retreat back to the Deccan. The Palas would push forward, then get thrown back. It was a dizzying, bloody affair. But it wasn't a stalemate forever. One of these powers just proved to be more resilient. And that power was the Pratiharas. Under some seriously impressive rulers like King Poja, they didn't just capture Kannauj, they held onto it, and they built a massive, stable empire around it. For over a century, they were the undisputed masters of North India. The first round of this epic contest was finally over.
And this is what makes the subcontinent so complex and interesting. While this epic, generation-spanning war was consuming the north, something totally different was happening down in the south. A completely new kind of superpower was being built, one that looked not just inward at the land, but outward towards the sea.
We are talking about the incredible Chola Empire. Rising from the dust of older southern kingdoms, they created something really special. It was a totally different vision for what an empire could even be.
So what made the Cholas' playbook so different? Well, while everyone up north was fighting over land, the Cholas looked to the ocean. Under emperors like Rajaraja I and his son Rajendra, they built a navy so powerful it basically owned the Bay of Bengal. This gave them control of these vital sea trade routes to Southeast Asia, and their ambition wasn't just local. They launched huge expeditions to Sri Lanka and even sent an army all the way up to the river Ganga. But maybe the most amazing thing they did was pioneer this system of local self-government in their villages. I mean, that level of grassroots autonomy was just unheard of at the time. It was a whole different way to run an empire.
So, as we hit the year 1000, you've got this kind of balance of power, right? The Pratiharas are the top dogs in the north, and the Cholas are the superpower in the south. But the entire game was about to be flipped on its head. A new force was gathering just beyond the mountains.
Yeah, coming down from Central Asia were Turkic tribes. These were fierce, nomadic warriors, hardened by constant conflict. And their whole way of fighting, based on these lightning-fast raids, was something the established Indian kingdoms, with their slower, infantry-based armies, were just not ready for.
And the pressure was just relentless, led by one of the most famous and feared invaders of the era, Mahmud of Ghazni. Now, it's really important to get this. These weren't invasions to conquer territory, not at first. They were massive, devastating raids designed for one thing:
plunder. And look at the targets. He systematically takes out the frontier kingdoms, he sacks Kannauj itself in 1018, completely shattering its prestige, and it all culminates in the infamous plunder of the Somnath temple. This was a devastating psychological blow to the northern kingdoms. The shock waves from these raids were catastrophic. The old Pratiharas Empire, it just breaks apart. It can't handle it. And in its place, you get a collection of these warrior-led states known as the Rajputs. They become the new defenders of North India. But they were fiercely independent, and their constant clan rivalries made it almost impossible for them to present a united front.
This new, fragmented landscape in the north sets the stage for the final act of our 500-year story, because the next wave of invaders coming from the northwest, well, they weren't going to be satisfied with just plunder. They were coming to conquer, and they were coming to stay. So you might be asking, why were the Turkic armies so darned effective? Well, it really came down to a fundamental mismatch in military philosophy. It's like a classic clash of styles. Rajput armies relied on the massive, crushing power of war elephants and heavy infantry. They were devastating in close-quarters combat, but they were slow. The Turkic armies, on the other hand, were built around the mounted archer. Think about it. They could shower their enemies with arrows from a distance, retreat before a charge could even reach them, and just maneuver with incredible speed. It was brute force versus agile lethality.
And that mismatch comes to a head in this one single pivotal year, 1192 AD. At the Second Battle of Touraine, the invading Ghurid army, led by Muhammad of Ghor, faces this huge confederation of Rajput kings led by the legendary Prithviraj Chauhan. The speed and relentless archery of the Turks just completely shattered the Rajput charge. It was a decisive, history-altering defeat. And here's the key. The victory at Touraine wasn't just another raid. It was the end of an era. In the aftermath, Muhammad of Ghor's top general, a guy named Qutbuddin Aibak, captured Delhi and established a new, permanent state, the Delhi Sultanate. A new imperial power was born right in the heart of India.
And just like that, the central question that had fueled centuries of war, who would rule, it was finally answered. The age of the warring classical empires was over. A new power, with a different culture, a different language, and a different religion, was now sitting on the throne of India. But of course, one story ends and a new one begins. The establishment of the Sultanate wasn't just an endpoint. For the next 3 centuries, this new empire would rule from Delhi.